Hello, good morning. Good morning on the West Coast. Good afternoon on the East Coast. Somewhere in between, for everyone in between. Oh man. I am going to cheat today and put water in my mug because I didn't do it yet. Oh man. Hey Sam, I see you here. Let me... Happy Friday. I feel like I'm going to spill this water right now. But I can do this while everyone's watching. Hi!
Hello.
How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are
I'm
you?
good. You can hear me okay?
Sound is
Okay.
nice.
Oh, that is lovely to hear. I've been having like headphone issues for a whole week, so glad you could hear me. I could hear you.
I try to pretend that I like AirPods, but
Oh,
they also are so annoying
I
sometimes.
know. It's all good. All right. So, everyone, this is Sam. She's from Empowered Kids Therapy in Orlando, Florida. Um, I don't want to give too much information because I think it's just gonna kind of like flow in our conversation. But I'm like, I want to tell the world so much. But let's just get rocking and rolling. Does that sound good?
Perfect for me.
Okay. I always give the disclaimer that I have the questions on my computer over here, so don't mind my little hop back and forth. But
This is why we're matched because I have my little notes up here just in case if I miss anything.
right, we have our co-regulation tools. We're all in place. I love it. Okay, so why don't you tell us about yourself, how you're connected to the community, and all that you're doing right now?
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So my name is Samantha Stiles, and I am the CEO and occupational therapist at Empower Kids Therapy. I am located in Orlando, Florida. And I provide one-on-one and group services for all children, but most specifically, children who have difficulty processing their sensory system or have challenges with feeding. I work privately, just like anyone who's associated with Sunrise, in that I provide package services for families so they can get added support and really get to collaborate with me and ask all the questions that they need in order to feel like they understand and can connect in between sessions. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me so far.
I love it. Yeah, and I love you that you're highlighting the just how we approach our services and a little bit of background. Sam and I actually met at a OT Entrepreneur Summit back in
Yep.
November, what, like 2 or 3 years ago now? I can't even
Yeah, that's
keep
so
track.
crazy. It's going
I
on
know.
3.
I know. And we've just remained in touch, and it's been really, really amazing to have just like a another, and we have another amazing OT Deb. Shout out to Deb. We'll get her on here.
Woo!
But I think we all click because we all have very similar perspectives of like occupational therapy services should be more than just that 1 hour of therapy, right? And not that that means like you need to be an OT 5 hours a week, right? It's that we want to really empower, no pun intended,
Mm-hmm.
right? Families to take what we're doing and implement it in every other moment of the day, right? Like, so it's not just, the kid goes into OT, they have a great time, the OT comes out, it's like, oh yeah, they were so regulated, everything was sunshines and rainbows.
Everything was great.
Yeah,
Work on this one thing, this one
yeah,
piece of the larger puzzle.
yeah. And like, I mean, I'll speak for myself, but I know you also worked in a clinic space, right? Like, we were those therapists, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like on the inside, it's like that's what we had to work with because that's the setting and like the bigger systemic setup that we were in. But it's like now that we know what impact can happen by being in the family's homes and having this extra time to just sit down and talk one-on-one as adults without
Mm-hmm.
a kid tugging at a parent's arm. So it's been a game changer both for me, for both of us, but I also for like the families that I'm serving, and I could see it, and I'm sure it feels the same for you, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think the also cool part is like we were, granted, there are moments and times where I think a clinic setting is beneficial for some children in order to get the intensity of the movement. I love the fact that I can see parents in the natural environment to be in the moment with them of seeing what's happening and what they're discussing so that we can problem solve on the fly in the moment when it's actually happening versus a clinic setting where things are already set up or organized for you, and you have to stimulate that environment.
Yeah.
And so I've had a lot of sessions, at least recently, where I've been in there problem solving with the parent in the moment, with all the added items that occur, a partner, a child, an animal, time of day, situational, dysregulated, a bump or a bruise because they just fell.
Yeah.
You know, there's all these added pieces that you sometimes have to mock in a clinic environment. And so being in home allows you to see the true nature of those situations, and then really be able to dive deep into the parents of saying, hey, even if it's something as small as like a language shift or a shift in their schedule or an aspect of their daily life that just needs a small tweak, you get to see it versus the report of the family. And so that's why I really love how we do sessions and we do therapy.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I know when we first met and we spoke about like our passions in OT. So anyone that knows OT is like, OTs could do so much, right? It's so broad, and that's a big reason why I went into it. But now it's like I've niched down to a very specific area. And when Sam shared that you did feeding, I was like, oh, that's not me. Like, nope. You know, so like it's just, and what I was exposed to in feeding is like the clinic-based feeding, right? And I will say I have my own feeding things where I think I told you this the first time we met. I was like, I would pretend to like lick it and like, like, you know, so I am not your feeding therapist, she is. But what have you noticed in terms of like being in the home environment and at their actual kitchen table or in their actual high chair? You know, what has changed in that realm?
It's 100% matched in the same way. You get to see the nuances of things that happen that lead up to the build up as an outsider not in it, because when a parent is sitting down at dinner time, they're so stressed because they're connected to this fear of, if my child isn't eating, what happens, right? And so it's very fearful for them, and so they will resort to doing anything, saying anything, to get their kid to eat. And we can see as outsiders in the moment, oh, this phrase that they use doesn't match with what they actually want the kid to do. And so from a behavior perspective, that kid isn't going to respond appropriately. Or, oh my goodness, they presented that food in a way that their sensory system is not going to be able to process it. And so then to see in the moment how all those pieces combine, because we can see the larger picture, being in the session at that time with the family on making those adjustments that really put all those puzzle pieces together for that family understanding the feeding challenges. So it's sometimes I've noticed too, being in this type of setting, that feeding is more related to the parents and setting and setup than it is the actual food. And so that's been super interesting at shifting wise, because when I was in the clinic, I only focused on the food. And what I was finding is there was less carryover of kids exploring that food in the new environment because their expectations were different. So
an environment can change so much, right? Like it's just like you were saying, or what I was saying about like the kid could come into the clinic and like be completely regulated because it's like so fun and exciting, right? Versus being in their home where they feel like 100% safe. It's where they're spending all their time anyway, you know? So yeah, really insightful. Cool. All right, let's dive in a little bit more. Before you hopped on, my mug is empty. I was gonna fill it with water, but I picked this one out for you. Can you see who it is? My ring light. I know, and it says, "This is a good day to have a good day." So, our next question kind of dives into it, and people will now understand, if they don't know you yet, why I'm talking about Stitch and Disney and all that. But we believe very much so that our experiences shape our perspectives and just like our general life path, right? So how have your life experience shaped the way you support individuals as an OT, and how do you empower therapy supports for families overall? Disney, cough, cough.
I feel like this is layered in so many different ways, but we both had our initial experiences as an occupational therapist in a clinic setting. So I've taken bits and pieces of what I learned there and apply it into what I'm doing now. So whether it be a different type of movement, a different type of sensory strategy, a different type of technique in order to get the vestibular system or the proprioceptive system working, like I've taken pieces of that. I've also worked in schools, and so I take bits and pieces of that and what I've learned about those expectations. And I also worked in an inpatient hospital setting with children who were transitioning from the NICU setting to home, whether it be their parents needed more education on ventilator settings or how to actually handle their child when they have all these tubes because they are more medically involved. So I've taken bits and pieces of that and applied it to what I do now. So the parent education piece was huge. And I found that that is the biggest barrier to the kids making progress, right? They're with me in sessions for a short period of time. And so the more that I'm adding parent education and parent guidance to how I'm treating the child, the more progress they're going to make outside when I'm not there.
Yeah.
And so that was the huge big piece that I feel like is the missing connection with a lot of education within the OT world, right?
Yeah.
Is like how to talk with parents to get on their level. Maybe like there's a couple different parents where I give 8 recommendations in a moment, but there's another parent that I can read their language and their situation. I'm like, oh, you need only 1 recommendation this week. Or I hear a parent talking about a situation that they're having with a sibling, and I can see how it relates to that kid, but the parent's not viewing it as like they know everything about this child that is having that concern. And so then I'm able to say, okay, let's talk about how these are intercorrelated. And so that added piece of education from all the areas that I've worked in is just like created this whole rounded therapist that I am now.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like, I know we do field work at the end of our schooling, right? Like we go out and we do 12-week rotations and all that. That was, when I was at that age, it was like, oh my gosh. But it's like, there really isn't anything like just like being in it and doing it and experiencing. And like, depending on what population you're in and what setting you're in, there's just, we're always learning. And that's another reason why I love OT. It's like, there's never a moment where I'm like, I know it all, like there's always another course that I'm like, oh, I want to learn about this, or, another
or these 5
experience.
books over here
Yeah.
that we've talked about that I want to read, or
podcasts, all of it.
So I feel like that plays a big part of it from a like professional level, from a personal level about you mentioning Disney. I did move to Orlando, Florida in 2019 because I personally just wanted to be in the warmth and be near Disney. And I just wanted to see what's up and how I could make it down here. And it's, it's shifted crazy over time in such a positive way. But natural environment setting here for us is Disney and is having access to the parks. And so part of what I'm trying to incorporate so much more into what I do is meeting the parents in those settings or giving them strategies for in those settings. So whether or not it's them learning strategies to wait in line or activities to do before they get to the park or calming strategies, inside the park. It's just been really cool to see that application into a natural setting for that child and for the families I work with. Or like one of my friends just went to SeaWorld, and it was huge for that family. Having their child be able to participate in something like feeding a slimy, wet, smelly fish to this animal, right? And it's something that I think we sometimes take for granted when our sensory system is working effectively. But then once we have the education on how there's a little bit of wonkiness in that foundation of our system, how it can just impact it. It's not just sometimes in general a behavior or a choice like, I don't want to do this. There's something internally that is telling them warning, danger, don't do. There's all those added pieces which I like about my practice.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think a lot of times it's like a new parent, right? There's going to be like all the things like, what do I want to do with my kid? Like now I have this kid, right? Once you get past the stage of like, I have this newborn and I'm like living and breathing newborn life, but like, then they become toddlers and it's like, okay, what are we going to do? And everyone, like, it is a big thing to go to these like parks or go to festivals or, just go to a playground, right? And when
playgrounds,
right, when you find out or you recognize that, hey, my child's having a difficult time processing sensory rich environments, right? And that's everything we just explained, right? A lot of times you'll see that in the beginning at like a little preschool or a little play date, right? But then it's like, oh my gosh, how quickly the world can go from like all these ideas of what you want to do as a family to like,
Yeah.
because like you mentioned, with feeding, how that as a parent, like you want the best for your child and you're
Hmm.
going to do everything to make your child's life the most enjoyable and accessible. And then it circles into this own anxiety and pressure on yourself as a parent of like, how am I going to like support my child in accessing all these beautiful things that life has to offer, right? And
Hmm.
I think we're both very blessed to say that, we live in San Diego and Orlando, and we have really great like SeaWorld and
Yeah.
all these fun places around us. Um, but still, it's like everyone should be able to have access to these experiences, these family
Hmm.
experiences that are like kind of American dream kind of stuff, right? Like everyone's like
Yeah.
Disney World, and like for some people, for some parents, and for some kids, it's like you talk about Disney World and it's like, like
We
it's,
will never. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, like it's just not an option until they meet someone like you. I also, I mean, like I've gone to Disney. I grew up on the East Coast, so I went to Disney, what is it,
Yeah.
World by you and
World
Land by
is
me.
down here.
Yeah, so like I get overwhelmed in both of them. Like I just went for Christmas and like I was so overwhelmed and
Hmm.
I needed to prepare and I think I even spoke to you. I was like, okay, what are the rides that I should go on? So it's like I could only imagine with like a nervous system that is truly dysregulated, right? Like I
Yeah.
have my sensory quirks, but I don't need OT. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
But your situation was funny, and I'll
Yeah.
share. So it was Guardians. You had never been on one of the new rides, Guardians, remember?
Yes.
And you were like, I don't know what is this about. And that's
Yeah.
every kid, right?
Yes.
They will enter into a queue for what the
So
parents are
true.
saying is a ride, and they have no concept of what that means.
Yeah.
So there's a big difference in every single ride. And sometimes I've seen parents who are like push their kid to go on a ride, and then the kid doesn't know what the expectation is, doesn't know what it's going to feel like, doesn't know that they're going to be bombarded every part of their sensory system because Disney is all about
Yeah.
immersion. And then they're like, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. And
Mm.
then they have a tantrum or a meltdown. Or like you
Yeah.
had not gone on Guardians. And for anyone who doesn't know Guardians, it is a roller coaster, but each car moves separately from the train car.
Yeah.
So there are moments where you're like going sideways and you're going backwards and it's loud. And so
Yeah.
your system just gets messed with.
Yeah. And what's funny is I actually got off that and then I was like, I actually want to do it again because now I know what to expect
Yeah.
and I could actually enjoy it.
Yeah.
And we went back on it again
Yeah.
later that night. The line was shorter and we're like, all right, we're going back on again because I could
Yeah.
actually, because like I was so overwhelmed the whole
Yes.
time that I didn't even like experience it. So that's spot on. Yeah,
Yeah.
good example.
And that's what I just love about once you start talking about this, your system and how it's processing the world
Yeah.
around it, parents are like, oh, now I understand why that was hard for them, or why now I understand why something as simple, or we view as simple as like opening a present, sometimes even
Yeah.
can cause stress because
Yeah.
it's the unknown. And I think that that's one of the bigger key factors when we talk about therapy is just explaining things in a different way so parents can understand it and then copy and paste a different situation. So whether or not they're going to Disney,
Yeah.
going to a fair, going to a birthday party, starting a new school year, like all of it is all encompassing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Spot on. All right. So, you listed out a lot of like the different experiences that you've had and you pulled from those contexts, but I also know the amount of trainings you've gone through and like you were, I know I say I'm a big learner, but like you're a whole new level. So, is there one that you might lean into more or like one or two that like really resonate with you that you use a lot?
yeah, so there's two, and it's interesting because they're they're different but similar. So right when I had first graduated college 12 years ago, oh my God, I can't even
Who's
do the math.
counting?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
something like that, right? 12, 11, which is wild in and of itself. But I was forced at the time, but I decided now, like I'm so thankful for that experience. But I took the SIPT course, so the sensory integration and praxis test. The actual test function isn't used now. They've been working on updating it and changing it to what's called Classy, but basically it provided me with the foundation of understanding and observing what is our sensory system. What's frustrating for me about OT programs in general is that sensory integration is not something that they dive intensely deep into, depending on whatever your program is. I do think that now they have added different aspects to certain undergrad programs to talk about sensory integration, but it is such a key part in our understanding about how everything is impacted within our lives. So from the time that you're born in the birth process to us as adults, thinking about how our sensory system is functioning and how it changes over time and changes within situations, understanding that whole body concept from brain to synapses was super important in my understanding of the foundation of everything.
Yeah.
So that was the first one.
Yeah.
I then took SOS, approach to feeding therapy, and I don't call myself I can't technically call myself an approved provider of the SOS function because you have to go through multiple different classes, but I've taken the foundation class twice. And the reason why I did so is because I felt like I wanted more. I was seeing more kids with have more intense feeding issues, and I was like, is it me or is it them? So I took it twice. And in taking it twice, I recognized that no, it's actually a lot of kids nowadays are having a lot more feeding struggles. And what I learned in relation to feeding, I've also applied into therapy too. So what we just talked about knowing expectations and exploring that experience with food is the same thing as exploring new environments. And so applying that. Another big factor that I also learned is how much our language plays a part in our success with kids or our struggle with kids or getting into that tug of war battle. So those two parts were huge for me in taking those classes, but those were the most impactful, at least that I recognize that I'm using more frequently.
Yeah, and I could see how they could tie together. And I love how you're taking things from the feeding course, right? And how we're using language to support and like present foods and like encourage in gentle ways, and how that could be generalized to everything, right? Like I can't even tell you how many times I'll ask a question to a kid, even like my little niece, and they're like, no. And I'm like, oh, I probably shouldn't have phrased that as a question. What I meant was.
What I meant was, we're putting your shoes on now so we can go outside versus now I have to let you go barefoot or carry you.
I know.
Because it wasn't an option to not put your shoes on.
Little things.
That little, like, and that's my thing is I've taken a lot of continuing education, and if I can just grab one little snippet that can help in any aspect, I viewed it as being a good course anyway. And so one of the biggest things that I'm always telling parents is like, stop asking questions. You're allowing your child to have the control when you're the one that's in control, and you need them to do this. And then so if you're asking it as a question, right, you're giving them the option to say no, but then you're invalidating their opinion because you asked for it. Do you want to put your shoes on? No. Oh, well, we have to put our shoes on. Well, we already told you no. Right? Like,
and it's like then we're teaching these other patterns of like not being heard or respected, so it's like, it is a vicious cycle.
There's many layers of it. So those I feel like are the two biggest ones that I just find myself referring back to multiple times.
They're good ones for sure. I don't know if we have this as a question, I think in a little bit, but how does some of that, and then even what we were just talking about on like predictability and not asking questions, tie into getting back to school and some of the things you got going on for that?
So this is huge. So we know that
sorry.
Beryl.
Does it work on husbands?
Hi, Beryl.
I love it. I don't know. I'll try. I'll get back to you. Unlikely.
I don't know if Jimmy in the back is watching, but you can ask him.
Funny.
She's hilarious. Okay, so back to school. This is huge. So like our families right now are in this transition. Us in Florida, we're going back not next week but the week after. So we have just like 9 days to get it together. And so in summer, there's so much less structure, a lot more freedom. The kids have a lot more control. And then all of a sudden, bam, they're back in school. They have a time that they have to wake up. They have a time they have to go to bed. They have expectations for school and expectations for home now. And so I think it's us as our parents are really like struggling within this big transition. And it's hard for kids, new teachers, new expectations, new classrooms, new sensory experiences in class. The demands might have increased. And so what I'm finding is a lot of times when kids start school, they're losing their minds, right? Or like from a parent's perspective. And so what we want to do is help support them in being able to understand the expectations, understand the transition, and do it slowly over time so it's not a big black and white shift. So what I'm doing and what we started yesterday is we started to create what we called our back to school prep course. And what it is lessons to support the transition in many different areas for kids, but also for families and for parents. So we've created a sequence of emails that families will receive that talks about routines and lunch expectations, because that's a big one. How to create a calendar, after school strategies, play dates, because that's a huge one. But also like homework help and backpack safety. So like all these big topics that parents, I think, don't recognize as being big topics and how it can really impact their kids' ability to be independent in all of these strategies. We want to provide families and kids with support. So for families, we are providing them with the knowledge of why this aspect is important and giving them strategies to learn how to implement and practice it with their kid. And for kids, we're implementing and giving small strategies to practice in game-like manners. So with routines, we've built, like, I won't give too much, but like a race. So like a dressing race, or different movement strategies that they can do before school, because all these big topic areas are so important in allowing kids to just know what's expected of them so that they'll follow it. And so parents aren't stressed so much, in the mornings and after school. So that's just a big overall of some of the things that we are diving into.
Yeah, I love it. I'm gonna be sure to share on our stories, and I'm sure they could find it through like just clicking through to your website, but I'll share it in the caption of this too, of how to find information. You said it's an email list, right? So they just pop in their
So
email.
the email list started today and is gonna go until the 7th, but if anyone signs up now, they just will start on the sequence, so they'll get all the emails. So even if you find this, 12 days from now, it's still going to be out there so that they can still get the support. Because like I know we're both from the East Coast, and so up north doesn't start till like after Labor Day. So I know there's a lot of families who are still going to need those support, and so we wanted to make sure that everyone can get it, even if you start 9 days from now, or
if you have
now, really.
that time, really. I love it. I know it's so interesting how schools start at all different times. I just want to highlight, I love how you did two things. You have like, why is this important? And then what can you do about it? Right? Because like just being told what to do isn't really helpful. Understanding why it's helpful, and vice versa. And I love that you included the kids. Oh my gosh, like so good of like it's kind of this commitment you're making as a family, right? Like mom and dad are learning and kids are learning together, and it's like we're all doing this together, So I love it. I think I'm going to sign up for it and learn. I already, like, even through you explaining it, I know I have like seen some of it, but you talking through, I'm like, oh gosh, there's a family I definitely want to send this to. So I'm excited for everyone to get it.
I think just too, like if you're thinking about routines, I don't think that sometimes we view us as adults and what we use as our own strategies separate from our kids. And so sometimes we're not applying it through both. So some regulation strategies that we use as adults, we're not actually then applying it to kids. So like right now, we're having a conversation and I have a fidget toy. Right? And so I'm keeping my focus and attention on what I need to by fidgeting. And yet we're not applying that to our kids. And that's just a very specific model. But we're talking about like routines. We talk about like if you need your morning walk, or if you need to do yoga in the morning, or if you need to take a bath at night. All these are strategies that you've built into a routine. And imagine if someone was like, no, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this.
Yeah.
That's what's happening with your kid. And so instead, building some of those routines up and applying what we know about our own bodies to them. So maybe it is just a simple like movement activity in the morning, which we'll give you if you sign up, or like something as simple as like taking the anxiety and stress out of picking an outfit of the day. Like pick out your outfits ahead of time, have your child pick it out the night before. Like adding those 5 minutes into time that's not stressful will allow those times that are a little more stressful, like getting ready for school, are just easier. And so we have all these listed out and all these strategies. And fun and games, like we've included a lot of different videos too, ones that we have done, but also ones that we've found that you can just easy as a parent click and go for your kid in order to learn. So it's all encompassing.
I love it so much. And something else that I want to add to like using the strategies for ourselves that I say to parents a lot of like, do you have a calendar? Like, do you use like the Apple calendar and you know what your day is going to look like, right? You got to bring Johnny here at this time. You got to, like you know what your day is going to look like. But we expect our kids to just be like, okay, let's go, or we tell them last minute, like, we're going to the doctor, we're going, and it's like, I didn't know that was what was happening. They wake up and they think they're just going to play all day and life's going to be, so yeah, spot on. I love that you shared that.
That's huge. And I think like one of the things that I always also tell my parents is like, Jimmy and I have like just a brief conversation like every Sunday to be like, what do you have going on this week? And why don't we do that with our kids? Right? Why don't we sit down? It doesn't have to be this long, big production. It can have a simple printed calendar and say, hey, on Tuesday, we have a doctor's appointment. So know that when you get home, we won't be able to watch your favorite show or play outside or go to the playground. Instead, we have to go to the doctor, but we can do that after. So already you're warning them about what's going to happen. And so that it's like huge. And it also allows them to have that flexibility so that when the unexpected does happen, they can be more flexible because
they can handle it.
Their capacity level has improved because you've warned them about it. So just stuff like that I think we take for granted as high functioning adults. We're not applying it to our kids, but that's where our expectation needs to be. We have to apply it.
Yeah. So spot on. I was just scrolling back on some of the messages we got. I tell my husband to stop asking everything as a question. Yep. It's like, you're the adult. Our 2-year-old is not a dictator. Yes. Baby toddler kid books. Yeah, 100%. And like, it's crazy to me because like, if kids are little sponges or like little clay molds, right? Like what you allow them to form into or what you kind of shape for them is they're going to take on that role, right? So like, if they are recognizing that they do get to dictate everything, like that's just going to snowball, right? Like, so setting those boundaries. And I shared recently, I think it was on this account of this guy sharing like this, he was supposed to be a child life expert. I'm going to share it again for anyone listening because it got me so good. It's like, he's like, I want you to sit down with your child and pull over a chair and have a 40-minute conversation. And maybe by the end, go into the history of why putting on shoes is important. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I totally, like, that's not what we're asking, right? Like, we're not saying like sit down and like have this whole debate, or like not heated, but informed conversation with your toddler. Like, we are saying put things in place that allow you to have more control over like your life situation, right? Or your daily situation. So yeah, spot on with that. Thank you for sharing baby toddler kids. Yes, transitions are hard.
And that's another thing too about school when you think about it. Like a lot of, in Florida here, we have a lot of ability to do homeschool type of situations. But even still, like a lot of families will report that the school is like, oh, we gave them a 5-minute warning. It's like that 5-year-old doesn't know what 5 minutes is. And so just supporting them with like a visual timer or counting down each minute, like they most should know 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Like that's it. And then you help them through the transition by helping them to clean up so they're not doing it by themselves.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah. And school, so they're being bombarded with that all day long.
Yeah, all the transitions, all the stimuli, it's just that we could probably talk a whole nother hour about the school stuff. But yeah, visual
Yeah.
schedules. Um, do you provide services for husbands who won't listen to their wives, but if somebody else tells them they do? Actually, I've been in that situation quite a few times where I'm like, sitting at the table with mom and dad, and I turn into like a marriage family therapist, and it's like, hey, we just need to a lot of times I see, to be honest, like one parent is really like structured and like strict, and the other parent is very like child-led, and that gets so confusing for the kid. It's
so
like
hard, yeah.
Yeah, and then the kid often will go to the parent that is more like laid back or child-led because they learn like the path is easier this way. And it's not that necessarily they're like being manipulative. It is just the brain going the easiest path. We understand that as adults, right? Like when we have to do something hard, a lot of us like avoid it or move it on our to-do list for a few weeks. I know I do, right? But your kid is just then going to the easier route of the easier parent, and then it like becomes this whole dynamic between mom and dad. So
And
yeah,
it's a self-regulation thing too.
Yeah.
So if you have a parent who's more authoritative style, that kid is feeling like they are being reprimanded because it's authoritative, right?
Yeah.
Do this now. And so their system might not be ready for that because they're dysregulated. And so you've checked the box of like fight or flight, I'm going, fight, flight, freeze, like it's happening. And so then they're not going to do because they can't access their cognition because they've shut down, right? Versus the other way, it's not like you're having to do that tug of war battle because you're acknowledging most of the time like how they're feeling, what their body needs, and then you get to what they actually need to be doing with their body, right? So yeah, it is so different. And also like one way works one time, but then they realize too like it's harder, and so they're like, nope, not going to do it that way. That way sucked.
It's just it's like the human experience. 100%. And the more we could see little kids or just kids in general, teens too, right? As like just extensions of ourselves, and reflect on yourself of like what you do to stay regulated or what sets you off, and then recognizing like, okay, their nervous system and their brain isn't as developed as mine, right? Like I have a fully grown brain, and I'm still like losing my shit sometimes, right? Like, so I can't expect them to be perfectly moving through everything. And the highlight of like your own regulation and self-care, and which is hard, right? It's a balance of all the things, but that does line up to my next question that I want to ask you. Of we have like our thing is rise. What is my thing? We're neurodivergent individuals, rise and shine. Like, what is my slogan? But I also apply that to myself, the team, and then the people that I surround myself with. So we learned that you love crafting, exploring new coffee shops and breweries. So what else do you do to rise and shine so you're regulated to then serve the people that you do serve?
Yeah, so interesting because it fits in so many different ways. But I've created more of a routine and schedule for myself.
Nice.
I'm stopping work on the weekends,
Nice.
which is hard to say, right? Because like we're business owners, and so we are always thinking of that. Like mine is like for allowing children to reach their potential and beyond. So I'm always thinking like, my expectation for my potential is here, but it's also here. So if I work a little bit more, I can reach that beyond even faster, right? So I've stopped doing that, which is great. And I've realized that my system needs more rest than it does need to be more active and going. And so I used to do a lot more like social events and going to the parks with people and exploring more. And instead I've just been sitting in the rest factor. So doing more like personal reading, coloring, which sounds crazy.
No, I love it.
But it's like my favorite.
Yeah.
doing stuff like that has shifted.
Mm.
I also have created more boundaries for myself. And I think that that's a really good thing to think about as being a parent too, of like, what boundaries is my kid trying to have, and how can I show them that this might be a better one, or that this might be a way to adjust. And so for me, like, my boundaries of like rescheduling situations, um and my time. So like, I'm going away next week, which is well deserved and well needed. And before Sam would have taken the phone, checked the email, done work, organized myself, said, oh, I'm just going to do one or two things that leads into hours of work. And instead, I'm separating that, to allow myself to come back and be more me, so I can be more present for my families too. So
Yeah, it's so hard. I resonate with all of that, of the like going beyond, and like how hard it is to say like, I'm not, I'm not going to work this weekend, or I'm not going to work on this trip, because I know as therapists we put a lot of pressure on ourselves because we care so much about the families we serve, right? We just like want to always be there for them, and I do believe that's what also makes us great therapists, and we can't continue that without pouring into ourselves first. So kudos to you. It's definitely hard. And like for me, and I think again, both of us are from New York, and that like mindset of like go, 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 right? Like just sitting and chilling on the couch sometimes is so hard for me. Like my husband will be like, you want to watch an episode of blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, because I don't want to get sucked in and like waste but like how nice is it to just like sit and watch like 5 episodes and just chill? Like I'm not doing it every single day, but I'm just like letting my body rest,
It's the let go part.
Yes.
Right? Because it's the let go and not just act and move.
And do and check things off.
So many of that is just incorporated into everything that we do. And again, reminder for families, like sometimes kids need to reset. And so that after school time too, like, is huge in making sure and ensuring that there is some time to do that before then providing all the other expectations that you have. So
definitely. Yeah, and not feeling guilty about resting. Yes. Yeah, 100%. It's like, can't tell you how many times I sit down and I'm like, oh, but I could be getting this done. And it's just like, I gotta like literally like slap that thought out of my mind. Like, don't even think about it, Erin, Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of parents could resonate, a lot of parents and non-parents, therapists, whoever's listening, All right. So I said I will definitely share some information in the caption and on my stories, but where else can people find you and stay connected?
Yeah, I would love for anyone to come and join us on Instagram. We are reshifting some of what we're doing on Instagram. So our goal is to just provide as much education as we can to families. So that's first off. We are also redoing our website, hint, hint. So that will be a new one, we'll be revamping soon. But we have loads of tips, especially if you're going to be visiting the Disney parks. Soon, we're going to have a couple more things to be able to offer those families who maybe have a kiddo who needs a little bit more support. So yeah, we'd love to see everybody. EmpowerKidsTherapy.com. It's going to stay like that. And yeah, same thing on Instagram.
Cool. Yeah, if you're listening later, I believe it will have both of our little names. You could just tap somewhere on Instagram. I don't know, but it'll be somewhere on the screen. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. This is really fun. Typically we're talking in different formats, so this is nice.
We're usually talking as we're going to sessions.
I know.
So it's
like on the go, quick little ramble.
It's good for dedicated time to just say hi and, be appreciative 100%. Of friendship as therapist and personal. So
yeah, definitely. And like-minded humans, and good conversation from everyone that joined. Thank you for tuning in.
Thanks, Beryl, if you're still here.
I think she had to go. All right. Thank you, guys. We'll talk soon.
Bye. Bye. See you later.